Hey guys, so it's me again. Um, I felt like the response to my first sort of long form artist diary YouTube video was pretty good. So today I wanted to tell you a bit more about the story of my first album that I've made and released back in 2020. Um, Also, big struggle to always keep putting out music, but I strongly believe in Um, doing less but doing better. So I'm taking my time with the second album. A bit too long maybe, but I'm getting there. Yeah, so my first album was all about self-discovery. It tells the story of a young man that faces the pressure from reality, and he sort of wants to escape, and by trying to believe he can escape, he sort of creates a portal, like a hole in reality that he can enter. And it's because he was sort of so depressed. It was like a dark portal, and it called him in, and it was like basically, yeah, just um, just a call to jump into the void and see what's on the other side, and sort of but in a um fantasy way, because he felt like, the only place that I really need to discover is my fantasy world and my inside world, and I have to find myself. And so he goes into it, and uh he does so by imagining a starship, a spaceship, and the spaceship has the form of a kidney bean, and it has a cowboy hat on top, because he felt like when he sees someone else in there, um, he wants to be able to greet people. So the cowboy hat is sort of like to greet other spaceships or aliens or whatever he's going to encounter. And so he gets sucked into this hole. He flies into it, and then he lands in space, and he flies through space, and there he all of a sudden he gets sucked into a storm, like a nebula storm, and he gets shaken around and spit out on the other side, and then he basically crashes. He crashes on a planet, um, and he later is going to find out that this planet is basically his home planet that he's built as a kid. Mm. And so he crashes, and then he sort of doesn't know where to go. And all of a sudden, a dinosaur shows up, and the dinosaur has like a big silver belly that looks like um a disco ball. So his name is Mr. Disco Dino. Um, and he invites him to a party because apparently there's some prophecy that will be fulfilled on this day, because it says there will be a boy flying down from the sky, and they believe it's him. And so he invites him to the party, and he's like, when the volcano that we're gonna dance around is gonna spit some glitter, then it's gonna be you. The prophecy is gonna be fulfilled. It's the homecoming of the child that has built this planet, this world. And then they go and dance all night, and the volcano doesn't spit fire yet. And so um yeah, they dance until he's like super tired. Obviously, he's super tired because he just traveled through the whole space. Um and then he during the party, like at some point he's a bit tired, and so the boy leaves the party and walks to a forest, and there he lays down and he watches the moon until he hears a voice coming from the bush, and the voice is calling him, asking him to follow it into the jungle. And then uh, he follows it, and he discovers a little cat, like a super funny cat, sitting in the bush. And he's like, "Hey man, do you wanna like come to another rave in in the jungle with me?" And the boy's like, "Yeah, sure. Why not?" Not sure why he's saying yes though, but he just follows it. I guess he's a bit desperate. And the cat gives him some stuff to eat and to drink, because he's very hungry and thirsty. And so turns out that that was like some sort of drug thing. Um, and they go further into the jungle until they arrive at this jungle rave with a lot of fruit bats that are partying like wild. And then, yeah, he gets so um, wasted, you could say, that he wakes up the next day in the middle of the ocean on a little tiny island. And yeah, I think I'm gonna split this video into two and tell you more in the next one. Obviously, I'm just gonna keep talking and cut the video in half. So yeah, so this is the second part. He wakes up on this little island. Um, doesn't know where he is, and the only thing on that island is a cactus. And when he sees the cactus, and the cactus sees him, and the cactus comes running after him. And obviously, what he does is he runs away. And so they run in circles around the tiny island until they are out of breath, and the cactus and him start talking. And so they sit down and have a talk, and turns out the cactus was just really happy to see someone else on that island, and all he wanted was a hug. That's why his name is Hugtus. He's also like the first imaginary friend that the boy meets. And then they become friends, and they think about how to get off the island because neither of them can swim properly, or at least, and let's say it's just an ocean facing them, and they don't know how to cross that ocean. And so while they were thinking, standing on the shoreline, uh, the clouds start singing and moving, and then suddenly a pink flying dolphin comes down from the sky and tells them his grandma has sent him to pick him up. Um, and his name is Beefynn McDowell. Um, and he picks them up and flies them to the shoreline. And then um, he drops them off, and during the flight, they also very quickly fly so high to visit the boy's grandma and wave, just making sure she's fine. And then the dolphin drops them off on the shoreline, and he basically says, like, "Yeah, your grandma wanted me to stay with you as sort of a guardian angel." And he follows them as well, and they they're three friends now, two imaginary friends of the boy, and they walk into the forest on the shoreline in a huge jungle. It's probably the same jungle as the crazy cat, where the crazy cat lives. Because soon enough they come across a weird little bar called the Karaoke Jaguar Club, which is a shady looking, murky place where you wouldn't just go in, but they were sort of desperate for food or like advice how to get through the jungle. And the bar was like full of um, crazy cats, like lions and leopards and jaguars. I imagine them to be like having like leather pants, like motorcycle clubs, you know. And then there's this tiny little stage in the corner where when the lights go on, like all the cats, they calm down and they listen. And this little funny dude called Lampard walks onto the stage and just entertains the whole crowd. And he sort of looks like a leopard or a jaguar, but he's not quite because his mom is a jaguar or a leopard, and his dad was a lemon. So he sort of came out looking all funny. And he was like bullied a lot when he was a kid, but it made him grow stronger and he sort of found happiness anyway. And now he's just entertaining all of them. But yeah, turns out he doesn't enjoy being there that much anymore. So he joins the club as well, like the three guys. And now they're like there's four of them and they go on their way. They leave the jungle and they come back to the spaceship, the friendly spaceship with the cowboy hat. And they're like, while they're repairing it, they decide to start a band and call themselves Loveboy and his imaginary friends. And that's when the volcano spits the glitter up into the air. And yeah, and end of story. That's sort of like the story of my first album. Um, you can listen to it on Spotify if you want. Um, yeah, and maybe someday come to one of our live shows where we tell the story as well sometimes, depending on which live show we perform. Yeah. And next time I might tell you a bit more about the second album, or I've got some other ideas because we also have a logo, a band logo. I can tell you more about it next time. Thank you.